WWE Fast Lane is live this Sunday, sold out from Cleveland, Ohio. The final pay-per-view on the road to WrestleMania. We've got two kickoff show matches. Rey Mysterio takes on Andrade Cien Almas on the kickoff show. I guess that's one way to get people to pay attention to the kickoff. I only hope that the building is at least half full when they send those two out there, because sometimes they send these guys out to a half-empty house, which would be an absolute crime if they did that to these two, so they better not. Should be a great match. It could go either way. I'm going with Almas. I think Almas needs a good solid win here. No reason not to give it to him. And I'm sure this is not the last time we're going to see these two together, which I don't mind. I just wish that this was not on the pre-show. But I'm going with Almas for the win. I suspect that they will put that match on later in the hour, after the other kickoff match, which is Big E and Xavier Woods of New Day taking on Rusev and Shinsegae Nakamura. Xavier did not seem too thrilled to find out about the match on Twitter. He said, "Glad I opened Twitter today, or else I wouldn't have known that we have a match on Sunday." That's what he said. It may just be storyline driven, though. I'm kind of guessing it is. He and Big E are still very upset at the way that Kofi Kingston has been treated. Big E even threatened to not even wrestle. He suggested that maybe he and Xavier will just hold hands at ringside until Kofi gets his WWE title match. I say they either forfeit the match out of protest or otherwise get screwed in some way. I'm going to go with Naka Rusev for the win. Those New Day tweets, though, still are not as bad as Rusev basically begging to be fired on Twitter every single week. That's kind of become his act now. He just says whatever he wants. He flat out even made some other comment the other day about how you might not even see me anymore. It's very, very depressing to see what Rusev has been reduced to. We have the Revival defending their Raw Tag Team titles in a triple threat match against the former champions Chad Gable and Bobby Roode, as well as the team of Aleister Black and Ricochet. And as Dash Wilder pointed out on Twitter, still no full ring entrance on TV for the new champions since they won the titles. Maybe they'll finally get one here on pay-per-view. Roode and Gable cost Black and Ricochet the tag titles by interfering in the title match on Monday night between them and the Revival. They attacked the Revival, caused the DQ. Obviously, Black and Ricochet were not happy about that. It felt to me watching that, just watching how Roode and Gable were behaving, it felt to me like a heel turn. I don't know if it was meant to be or not. I can't say for sure. But either way, I think the Revival retained the titles. I don't know why you would take the belts off them so soon. Not that they still feel any more special than they did before they won the belts, but I'm picking them to retain. We've got Sasha Banks and Bayley defending their women's tag team titles against the team of Nia Jax and Tamina. This company would be fools to take those titles away from Sasha and Bayley so soon, let alone put them on these two. Although it would fit Sasha's MO, which is to win a title and then lose it immediately after. I don't think they will. Tamina got a singles win over Sasha Banks on Monday night, which is just an atrocity. Sasha and Bayley retain because we still need to see them defend those titles in NXT against Kairi and Io. We have Asuka defending her SmackDown Women's Championship against Mandy Rose. Asuka had a scare in her match with Mandy at the SmackDown Live event on Monday night. So while Raw was going on, people were tweeting out videos and updates. Asuka landed on her head. She didn't tuck her head, and it looks really bad. She had to be helped to the back. And of course, your heart just jumps into your throat. You start hearing about necks, and I mean, look at Ciampa. And so close to WrestleMania. She's got the title. Thankfully, there she was on Tuesday night, kicking Mandy's ass, kicking Sonya's ass. So she's okay. It is absurd how much of an afterthought she has become ever since tapping out Becky Lynch. Royal Rumble winner, Becky Lynch. WrestleMania headliner, Becky Lynch. Tapping her out back at the Royal Rumble. And look, I guess if you've got nothing for her, better to keep her on ice than just throw her out there in meaningless matches. But that's on them for not having anything for her to do. She's your champion. You have a creative army of 30 people working for you. There is no excuse heading into your biggest show of the year not to have anything of note for your SmackDown champion to do. I think Asuka retains here, and I think the way that I would do it, because there is no other obvious challenger. Yes, Ember Moon would have made a great opponent for Asuka. Unfortunately, she got hurt. She had elbow surgery. My understanding is she's not going to be healed up in time for WrestleMania, or else that would have been a great, interbrand match. Although I don't know how you sort of square that, given that Asuka's the SmackDown champion. But yes, that would have made for a great match. It's not going to happen. There's no other obvious opponent right now, or exciting opponent, for Asuka. So what I would do, you're going to have a women's battle royal, I assume, at WrestleMania. I would have the winner of the women's battle royal, so at least there's something on the line. The winner challenges Asuka later on in the night on the actual show, since I assume the battle royal will be on the kickoff, for the SmackDown women's title. That's what I would do. It's better than some random multi-person title match. Hey, let's get all the women and stick them all in one match. I like that idea a lot better than doing a multi-person match. And boy, if they do the Battle Royal with the winner going on to meet Asuka for the championship, boy, that sure would be a good way, I would think, to debut Shayna Baszler. Assuming that she loses her NXT Women's title 2 nights earlier at TakeOver. And you know what? Even if she doesn't, let her win anyway. It's not like we haven't had NXT champions who come up to the main roster and even wrestle for a few months on the main roster while still holding on to their NXT championships. If it's me, I would want to keep her dominant heading into the main roster like they did with Asuka when Asuka first debuted. What did Asuka do? Asuka never lost. Asuka went to the main roster unbeaten. She was never defeated until she lost to Charlotte at WrestleMania last year. You could do a similar thing with Shayna Baszler. She never loses. Which isn't true. I mean, she's lost before. She's not, undefeated. But you don't even have to beat her on the way out. She could always surrender the title. If you're ready to promote her fully to the main roster, you can always do that. There's nothing wrong with that. We have the Usos defending the SmackDown Tag Team titles against the former champions Shane McMahon and The Miz with his father, George Mizanin, at ringside. They're in the Miz's town of Cleveland. His father is something of a local celebrity there. He owns a whole bunch of Mr. Hero franchises around town, hero sandwich shops. This could be a big hometown celebration if they win back the titles. But that's not going to happen. I think this time, unlike when they lost the belts at the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view, I think it's going to be Shane and not Miz being the one to take the losing fall. And that just sets off The Miz, who, to do his father proud, turns on Shane McMahon and attacks him. I just don't see them. I'm not saying it can't happen. I just don't see them doing the swerve, which some people think they're going to do, where it's not Miz to turn. Everybody thinks Miz is going to turn, but it ends up being Shane. Shane goes heel. Shane is the one who turns on The Miz. Or even in doing that, have Miz's father, his own dad, turn on his son and call Shane my real son, which would be hilarious, don't get me wrong. I just don't see that happening. And I go back to what Shane McMahon said at the beginning of all of this. For all those weeks that Miz was courting him on television, you and I, we could be the best tag team in the world, and finally, Shane relented. But he made that one comment on SmackDown. He looked at Miz and said, "You better not screw me." And I've made the comparison before. That reminded me so much of Sting and Ric Flair, I want to say 95, in WCW, when Flair needed a partner. He was on the outs with the Horsemen and Arn, and it was going to be a tag team match. I don't remember if it was one of the Clash of the Champions shows. And Sting said, "Look, I'll be your partner, but you better not screw me." And what happened? Of course, because Sting's an idiot. He trusted them, and they turned on him, and they beat him down. And I never forgot that line that Shane, because it had to be stuck in there for a reason. It almost would make no sense for Shane to be the one to turn on Miz, other than to just swerve everybody. But it would make total sense, even though he was warned, for The Miz to go ahead and screw Shane, and for Shane then to want revenge, and boom, there's your WrestleMania match. So that's how I see it playing out. Usos retain, and that will bring us to a singles match between Shane and Miz at WrestleMania. We've got The Shield, Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, and Dean Ambrose back together again, at least for one night, until Ambrose turns on Reigns. They take on Drew McIntyre, Bobby Lashley, and Sasha Baron Corbin. This will be Roman's first match back since October. It is a tag team match, so if he's got any ring rust at all, or if they're worried about that at all, he will be well protected in this kind of environment. Corbin, McIntyre, and Lashley, they got a big win on TV this past week over Braun Strowman, Finn Balor, and Kurt Angle. So that was their big TV win that they got. That should be the only one that they get. I cannot see the Shield losing in their first match back together. Even if Ambrose turns, and I think he will, even if the turn happens, and I think the turn comes after. I don't think the turn happens, in mid-match, which then leads to the Shield losing. I think the Shield wins, but however it all goes down, either immediately after the match or the next night on Monday Night Raw, I think Ambrose is going to turn. I think we're in the middle of this sort of false babyface turn. I don't trust the guy. And I think the match at WrestleMania is going to end up being Roman Reigns one-on-one against Dean Ambrose. That sounds a lot better to me than this idea that I've seen floating around all week that supposedly on the table for WrestleMania is Roman Reigns one-on-one with Baron Corbin. I don't know from what fresh level of hell that match idea even comes from. I don't know what source that comes from, or if it's just made up bullshit. But whatever it is, or wherever it's from, it needs to quickly be banished back down to the fiery depths of hell. That would be awful as a WrestleMania match. It would only be worth it if Roman wore a shirt to the ring that said, "I beat cancer for this," because that's what I would be thinking. Let us hope that doesn't happen. So the Shield wins. Now, the match order here at the end, in these last two matches, I think is going to be dictated by what the planned finishes are for each of these matches. Now, I think the whole idea that we've heard this over the years, especially when it comes to WrestleMania, Vince McMahon, he likes to have a happy ending. I think this whole idea of, ending the shows on a happy note, which doesn't always happen, but just the idea of it is so played out. You know what I mean? Like, wrestling is not rainbows and unicorns, unless you're in the New Day. We've got our big boy pants on. I think we could handle the heel going over at the end. But ask yourself this, okay? Ask yourself this. What is the more popular program right now in the company? Who are the most over acts in the company? Is it Daniel Bryan and Kevin Owens? Or is it Becky Lynch? The women are likely headlining WrestleMania. The women have been positioned as the top program, especially in the absence of Roman Reigns. All the stuff with Charlotte and Becky and Ronda, that's been number one on these shows. And again, I think there's two reasons for that, or two reasons that have given them the chance to be featured as much as they are. They have benefited from the fact that Raw has an absentee world champion, or Universal, whatever the fuck. An absentee champion. So with Brock not being around, it's kind of hard to feature him on TV, right? Plus Rollins has been hurt, so he hasn't been around as much. You couple that with the absence of Roman Reigns, and it was the perfect recipe for the women to finally be featured in a prominent role. And that's the way it's been really going back to at least November. So there's no reason for the women not to go on last if you sort of rank these things by what is the top program in the company right now. It ain't Daniel Bryan and Kevin Owens. You could tell that just based on the crowd reaction on Tuesday night, which I thought was very disappointing. So if I'm looking at it like this, it ain't the WWE Championship match that goes on last here on this show. So with that being said, Daniel Bryan, he defends the WWE title against Kevin Owens. Now on SmackDown Tuesday night, Bryan told Owens that while I have Rowan, you have no friends, which I thought was the obvious setup for the return of Sami Zayn and for Sami Zayn to come out. Now, he didn't come out on Tuesday. Sami reportedly is due back any day now. I take that to mean that he's been cleared. I don't have that official, but he's due to come back any day now, whenever they're ready for him. I think we may see him here, helping Owens in some way or trying to, but Owens is not winning the championship. Daniel Bryan is going to retain the WWE title. Zayn coming out, even if just to sort of even the odds. Let's say Rowan gets involved or there's a ref bump or he tries to get involved, and out comes Sami Zayn to even the odds, to fight off Rowan. I think that is something that we probably see here, but in the end, Bryan still retains. And then we have the real main event, which is Becky Lynch taking on Charlotte Flair. If Charlotte wins, Becky is out of WrestleMania. But if Becky wins, she gets added to the Raw Women's title match, and it becomes a triple threat. Becky versus Charlotte was always the predictable match for Fast Lane. When I laid things out a few months ago here on the show, I pitched 2 matches between the two of them. The first one would have had a non-finish, or a fuck finish of some kind, at the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view. That would have led into one more match, a rematch between them in March at the Fast Lane show, and that would be the final deciding match. Charlotte against Becky, with Becky winning and going on to challenge Ronda Rousey at WrestleMania. Now, of course, that was with the idea when I initially pitched it that when Becky wins, Charlotte is out. I love the idea of them really kind of jabbing at the fans and teasing them and torturing them with this idea that Charlotte is going to WrestleMania when so many people did not want her to sort of muddy up the WrestleMania main event. And so just to fuck with the fans, I thought it was genius, but only if in the end Charlotte got bounced and it ended up being one-on-one the match that people wanted to see, which is Becky Lynch against Ronda Rousey. Now we know that Charlotte ain't going nowhere. Charlotte is going to be in this match whether you like it or not, so that's not how I would have done it. But no, that was sort of the way that I had laid things out, and ultimately here we are at Fastlane, and it is Charlotte one-on-one against Becky. We ended up in the same place. But even though we got to the same place, I look at this storyline these last few months, look at the convoluted mess that they have created just to get here. They suspend Becky Lynch for 30 days. Then they unsuspend her, but only after she apologizes. She apologizes like a bitch to Triple H and Stephanie McMahon. Oh, some badass, huh? Yeah. Then, even worse, after she apologizes, which she never should have done, Vince McMahon comes out and immediately suspends her again. This time for 60 days. And puts Charlotte in the match at WrestleMania. Then, Ronda vacates the Raw Women's Championship because they refuse to reinstate Becky Lynch and put her in the match at WrestleMania. Ronda begs for it. Please, I'm tired of Becky attacking me from behind and coming out of the crowd and hitting me with a crutch. Please reinstate her and put her in the match at WrestleMania. And they refuse. So what does Ronda do? She surrenders the title. Only for them to reinstate Becky Lynch anyway. And put her in the match with Charlotte at Fastlane to determine the new Raw Women's Champion. So not only do they reinstate Becky the following week, they put her in a championship match at the next pay-per-view. But then Ronda shows up and says, well, wait a minute, I want my belt back. Basically, I didn't mean what I said. I want my belt back. And Stephanie just hands it to her. So then the match between Becky and Charlotte, which was going to be for the Raw Women's Championship now, is no longer a title match. Instead, think about it like this. It isn't even for a shot at Ronda's title. If you really think about it, that's not what's really on the line here in this match. Charlotte's already in. It's to see if Becky will be added to the match at WrestleMania to make it a three-way. A three-way that nobody, I shouldn't say nobody, but a lot of people, most people, never asked for in the first place. Up until even a week ago, they were still running polls on WWE.com saying which of these 3 scenarios would you like to see the most? Do you want to see Charlotte one-on-one against Ronda at WrestleMania? And that got like 8%. Do you want to see a triple threat match? I think that got 13% or something. The overwhelming majority of people said they wanted Ronda Rousey one-on-one against Becky Lynch. Now look, maybe I'm wrong, and maybe they will take Charlotte out of the match, and it will be Charlotte and Asuka, and it'll end up one-on-one. I don't see that happening. But yes, there is time. There is time for them to still do the right thing. There could be another twist, another turn, and in the end, everybody gets what they want. It sure doesn't look like that right now. Look at the convoluted mess and the road that they took to get to where we are now. This is like if your GPS telling you that if you take this one road, it'll take you 5 minutes to get home. It's a straight shot. And instead, you decide, you know what, I'm going to take a detour here. I'm going to take a detour there, turn down this street. I'll circle back this way. Let's take the back roads. 45 minutes later, you're finally home. Why would you do that? But they have TV time to fill before WrestleMania. They've got 3 hours on Monday nights. They've got 2 hours on Tuesdays. This is their top storyline. So they have to find ways to fill television time. They have to throw in some sports entertainment. Becky is still very popular. The fans have not cooled on her, not yet. They're getting to the same destination. So it's not as though, oh, they ruined the whole thing. I wouldn't say they ruined the whole thing. If the people were sitting on their hands, if they started booing Becky, if it backfired on them, then yeah, we could say that they ruined it. So despite everything I just said and all these weird turns that they've taken that were completely unnecessary, it hasn't ruined the overall story. The fans still seem like they're into it, and they're getting to the same place. But I could have done without all of the dumb nonsense just to get there. This was such a simple story, a real, genuine, like realistic story that did not need all of this other nonsense just to get to where we are now. At least it turns out, if it turns out, that they're doing a power struggle storyline with the McMahons. At least then there will have been a reason for Vince to get involved and to suspend Becky a second time, and at least that part of it would make sense. We'll have to see how that plays out in the next few weeks. But it was still way more convoluted than it had any right to be just to get to this point. Becky, I think, triumphs here. She wins. She triumphs over Charlotte, even with the bad knee. She gets into the match of... of course she's going to get into the match of WrestleMania. For God's sakes. Of course she is. Just no swerves for the sake of swerves. That's all I hope for. Would not put anything past them. Well, let's swerve. Everyone who thinks that Becky is going to win, then we'll have Charlotte win. No more swerves. Just get Becky in there and let their promos carry them through WrestleMania. They're going at it every week on social media, tooth and nail. And yeah, I understand you can't have Ronda come on Raw and drop F-bombs. There's another F word I wish that she would stay away from using. You don't need that stuff. If you just let these two go out there, make it real. Let them go out there and talk trash about each other. You want to have a couple of pull-aparts here and there, that's fine. But we don't need all of this other sports entertainment bullshit to get us to WrestleMania. Got a few more weeks left. You want to make things real? You got Ronda Rousey doing these videos online like these journals, these diaries like you would see a fighter do before a UFC pay-per-view, which I am not opposed to that idea at all. I actually like that idea, and it makes it feel more real. Fine. Do more of that. Incorporate that style of things into the show. Play those videos on TV, the ones that are sanitized. At the end of the day, the only thing that matters is how you close. It's how you close. It's those last few weeks of promotion leading up to WrestleMania. And if you've got a really good, believable way to promote this match and keep people engaged in the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks, you know what? All this bullshit from 6 weeks ago and last week and a month ago, it ain't gonna matter. It's how you close. So I hope that they allow these women to just go out there, come up with a plan of what needs to be said and what you want to do. I'm sure one of these weeks there'll be the big contract signing, and that's going to be a big deal and probably turn into a big clusterfuck. But if they do it right, it could be compelling. Believe it or not, there are compelling ways to have contract signings. They're kind of passé. We see them all the time. They don't mean a whole hell of a lot. And I actually like some of the ones they've done recently. They did one last year with AJ and Nakamura that was in the back. They did one on 205 Live a few months ago with, I think it was Tozawa and Buddy Murphy that was just in the back with Drake Maverick. I wouldn't do this one in the back. But like I said, one of these weeks, there's going to be a big contract signing, so that'll be for that week. But don't, think too hard. You don't have to think too hard about this. Let these women go out there and sell the match on their own. And if you can do that, all this other stuff, all this other bullshit, it won't even matter. So I hope they can close strong, because it is a match I'm still looking forward to. This has been building now for months. The big payoff is coming at WrestleMania. I'm sure there are people who aren't as into it as I am, and frankly are probably sick of hearing about it. So they're looking forward to WrestleMania too, because it'll all be over. But I hope that they close this story out in the best possible way, and they don't ruin what had been, anyway, a good story. So that's Fast Lane. A completely unnecessary pay-per-view. I still maintain this show is completely unnecessary. But they make their money off these shows, I guess. It is sold out. On paper, it looks like a good show. I wouldn't say this card is filled with great matches up and down, but you've got Mysterio and you've got Almas on the kickoff. You've got Becky and you've got Charlotte, who have had some good matches before. And you've got Owens and Bryan, which kind of feels a little deflated to me right now, but they may go out there and they may tear the house down and have a great match. It's Kevin Owens' first big singles match, his first pay-per-view match back since coming back from surgery. So on paper, not the strongest show in the world, but there's a few matches on there that I think could carry the whole thing. So follow me on Twitter at Solomonster. As always, I'll be live tweeting during the pay-per-view. I will have a poll up as soon as the show is over for you to vote. Thumbs up, thumbs down. And of course, the Fastlane review will be up very early Monday morning, a few hours after the pay-per-view, right here on the YouTube channel.